Forgotten in a drink.
So, you're a forgetter then?
I heard a question from somewhere behind me. The voice was shaky and hoarse. I blinked in confusion. I was sitting on a bar stool with a glass in my hand. There was still maybe about half of a shot inside, but a nice buzz in my head told me I'd already downed at least a half a dozen drinks. I turned around on the stool, slowly and carefully, so I wouldn't fall. 4 guys were standing there, all staring at me, and all looked as confused as I felt. They knew who I was, so they must have been my friends, even if I wasn't able to drag their names and faces out of my memory. I tend to do serious and stupid things from time to time, but not even I would get totally drunk with a bunch of enemies behind my back. I wasn't sure where I was, but that's a state I'm used to, thanks to my professionally bad memory. I nodded my head slowly. Oh, yeah, I am. The guy who'd asked me that question made a face like he'd seen something truly disgusting.
I just don't get it. How can someone be mad enough to worship Alzheimer?
Yeah, man, I know what you mean. I sat and waved at my glass. Only a total idiot can worship the elder god of entropy and oblivion. But forgetter, that's a word that has 3 possible meanings. Showed him 3 fingers on my free hand, and then tapped the glass against my thumb. The first meaning, and it's really inaccurate because only a handful of them actually have some talent, are those cultist idiots, the hammerheads. The second meaning, I lowered my thumb and tapped my index finger, are mental forgetters, guys who can make someone forget. I can do that a bit, so technically, yeah, I'm a forgetter, but I seriously suck at it. I was speaking slowly to gain some time. I had been studying their faces and trying to squeeze something out of my buzzing head to remember where and what and who the hell. All those 4 guys looked like they were doing the same thing, which meant trouble. Listen, man, a normal mental forgetter can, if you let him, make you forget stuff. Did something nasty happen to you, something so bad it gives you nightmares, keeps you up at night? You let a mental forgetter into your head, show him what's bothering you, and he can help. He'll block the memory, so you'll forget about it. I lowered my index finger and took a sip from the glass. I was surprised when the whiskey touched my tongue. It was something really good and expensive, not the stuff I can normally afford. But man, if you have a problem like that, don't you dare ask me. Not even if you find me sober, I seriously suck at this.
You can wipe people's memories.
He growled angrily. It was all blurry because of all that high-quality booze I'd somehow managed to get. But he looked like a real tough guy. All 4 of them looked like tough guys. A lot of guns and knives and stuff. Enough for a dozen average tough guys. I was pretty sure that I was in serious trouble. I just couldn't remember why. Unless you let me, I can do maybe a little trick, if I'm really lucky. I smiled at him and whispered, like when I make the barman forget that I haven't paid for the last drink. And suddenly, I remembered at least one thing. Why I was so stupidly drunk. I've been using this trick for at least 2 hours now from the moment I entered the bar, and found out I have enough cash for 1 shot of a cheap vodka and really strong need to forget all my troubles like a normal guy for a change. In a drink.
You know that's a pretty handy trick,
said the tough guy on the right, putting his hands into the pockets of his vest. He found something there, made a surprised face, and took out a piece of paper.
Yeah,
it's pretty neat, I said happily.
What about the third meaning?
I took a look at my middle finger still up and realized what I'd been doing for the last minute. I stopped waving my middle finger at them and closed my hand into a fist. The third possible meaning of the word forgetter, the guys who themselves forget. Guys with a memory so bad that if they forget something, they forget it so well that it changes reality. And let me tell you, that's bad. Forgetting always has these, what do you call it, side effects, sometimes really bad ones. That's the real reason why people generally dislike forgetters and are afraid of them, especially combat amnesiacs. That's a forgetter who can use his skill in combat. I disliked what I was seeing on the face of the guy who'd found that piece of paper in his pocket and was studying it intently. I felt a trace of memory. Oh, my bad memory has made a mess of my life so many times. One time I forget.
You made us forget.
The guy with the paper interrupted me angrily and showed the paper to his friends. And at that moment my amateur attempt at a mental memory block failed for all of us. These guys, they were the bounty hunters. The bounty on the paper he was waving around stated that the price on my head was only half of what was offered for the full living package, so they tried to pick me up peacefully. Their boss aimed a pistol at my head, a small automatic. I just love automatics. The rest of them just put their hands on their weapons, ready to draw, to show me that they meant business. Yeah, well, sorry, man. I thought it would be better to try it, even if I suck at it, because if it worked, it would mean less pain and strain for all of us than fighting you guys. I nodded my head sadly and finished my drink. Then I forget that I was drunk.
Yeah, you're a miserable, incompetent little forgetter.
The guy with a pistol laughed harshly, then clicked off the safety on his gun to show he meant business. Idiot. Not the worst thing I've forgotten and ruined it, I said with a gloomy face and stared at my empty glass.
Do I want to know what the worst one was?
I shrugged. I forgot my wife's birthday. They lied. I did not. It still hurts, even after all those years. She was never born, I added. They scowled at me.
I suck as a mental forgetter,
I explained slowly, still fading to drunkenness.
But I'm a fucking good combat amnesiac.
I forgot that the guy with the pistol had clicked off the safety. I just loved those modern automatic pistols. I also forget that I had already finished the drink, threw the good, expensive whiskey in their eyes. It bought me enough time to forget about a bar stool under my ass. While surprised gravity tried to do its job, I pushed my legs against the bar with all my strength and flew between them. I blinked before my hands touched the floor at the last possible moment. I forgot about friction. It made me glide on my palms through the room without slowing down, right to the nearest wall. It was pretty hard to do, because the floor in the bar was made of rough wooden planks, and the damn physical laws were shaking off their surprise and doing their best to work normally. I touched my feet to the floor and used all four of my limbs to launch myself into the air, directly into the wall. I managed to forget that the window was a few feet to the left, but it turned out I wasn't able to shake off all the consequences of swindling the barman of expensive whiskey. My forgetting was good, but my coordination was off, just a few inches off, but instead of crashing through the window and getting out of the bar, I hit the frame and broke several of my fingers and my nose. The confused window instantly returned to its normal position, and a hail of bullets whistled angrily round me. Well, I forgot about the broken fingers and jumped aside. I was lucky. The bar was half empty, and most of the patrons were trying to escape or hide under their tables. The bounty hunters were actually helping me by screaming, "Forgetter! He's a forgetter! Kill him!" People generally don't know much about us forgetters, but they tend to be afraid of us. A bunch of miners in a tiny saloon in the middle of nowhere aren't usually heroes. They're practical guys without suicidal tendencies, so it was just me against the bounty hunter foursome. They were probably rather good bounty hunters based on how accurate their shooting was. The quick escape attempt failed, and I couldn't just repeat it. A combat amnesiac can be effective only if it can keep reality confused. He has to forget about tiny things for the smallest possible amount of time. One trick rarely works if you try to repeat it more than twice in a row. You have to keep changing them and using them in a seemingly chaotic flow that will take you where you need to be. I pulled down the table next to me to cover behind it, and forget that it was made of soft, cheap wood and offered no protection from bullets. The tabletop shook as it stopped several bullets, then started to vibrate as it was hit by a long burst of fully automatic fire. One of the hunters had a small subgun. The table managed to keep its suddenly bulletproof wood between my sorry ass and the bullets long enough. The other gunner was a professional, so he shouted, "Out! Reloading!" I let him. Then I forget that he just reloaded, peeked out from behind the table, and started shooting with my revolver. The guy with the subgun was standing in the middle of the barroom, desperately and uselessly pulling the trigger. Two others were close by, but I couldn't see their boss, that guy with the small automatic pistol. Maybe I'd unintentionally forgotten him. I managed to shoot 10 times before the revolver clicked empty. I was in a bad shape. Normally I can fire at least 15 bullets from my 6-shooter before reality realizes that there's something wrong going on here. But it was enough. The guy with the subgun was dead, and one of the others should have been out of it too, or at least seriously incapacitated. The third guy dropped an empty revolver, pulled a sawed-off shotgun out of somewhere, and aimed at me. When he pulled the trigger, I desperately jumped up and forgot about gravity. Desperation lent an unwelcome boost to my forgetting. I switched off gravity throughout the entire bar. The recoil launched the shotgun guy into the bar, where he smashed open a wooden barrel of cheap beer and ended up pretty much everywhere because gravity was still off. A combat amnesiac who wants to survive a battle has to carefully conserve his strength. He must keep his mind under tight control because every tiny manipulation of reality erodes his sanity and takes it closer and closer to a fit of full madness. Well, switching over to gravity for a big bar, that's a huge leap right into the pit of madness. For a few seconds, I was just gacking madly from my position under the roof where my jump had taken me. Then reality kicked me in the ass, which helped restart my mind. I dropped down, no longer laughing. I had to finish this quickly before I did something really stupid. Or before the fluctuations in the fabric of reality attracted the self-proclaimed god of physical law, the ascended Professor Zweistein. Most people think he's a stupid legend. He's not. A legend, I mean. The shotgun guy, drenched in beer, stood up, pulled another sawed-off, and shot at me, but missed. I wasn't going to wait for him to reload, so I charged. He dropped the shotgun and pulled another out of thin air. He shot at me, then repeated the sequence. I could feel reality grumbling, but it wasn't at me this time. He had some kind of talent. I was lucky his aim sucked. I pulled the knife and threw it at him. I missed. It was a nice surprise when he missed with his shotgun too, so I forgot that I'd thrown my knife at him and threw it again. I missed again. He summoned another shotgun. At the exact moment he pulled the trigger, I used all my strength to forget that the cheap beer didn't contain enough alcohol to be flammable. I forced myself in reality to forget that the beer couldn't ignite just from shotgun's muzzle splash. For a second or two, the shotgun guy blazed like a giant candle. He probably wasn't even burned, but it gave me enough time to jump over the bar. I pushed him down and started beating his head against the rough floor. I was clacking like a madman, which I technically was at the moment. One more trick, and the madness would consume me completely. But I made it. They didn't get me. I survived with my mind still recoverable.
Well, fuck me. The next forgetter I'm up against, I'm gonna shoot him with a sniper rifle from half a mile away,
Someone said behind me. It was the last bounty hunter, their boss, the one with the small pistol I'd lost track of during the fight. I was dead. Except it just couldn't resist telling me about the wise idea I just had. So I wasn't completely dead, just lying in a grave and looking at the guy who was ready to throw the first pile of dirt on my body. I give up, I said, releasing my last victim and starting to raise my hand slowly.
Too late for that, you monster,
he said, and pulled the trigger. I forgot that normal gunfire couldn't cook off the rest of the ammunition in the magazine. I love automatics. If it had a revolver, I'd have been dead because all the bullets would have ended up in me. With an automatic pistol, I took just one bullet between my shoulder blades, and it left only a very painful bruise, because somehow I'd also forgotten that I wasn't wearing a bulletproof vest. It hurt me, but it hurt him more. The explosion of the remaining cartridges in the magazine blew his hand off. I jumped to my feet to finish him. But he was a tough guy. He was squirting arterial blood out of his torn arm, but he managed to use his left hand to draw another pistol. Reality shook as the shotgun lever under my feet used his talent again and summoned another damn boomstick out of nowhere. There was only one thing I could do at that moment. It was my best trick. It was also the hardest and most dangerous. The results were always totally unpredictable. I never used it if there was any other way. There were many reasons for that. One of them was the simple fact that I could never do it with a sane, functional mind. But at the moment, just one step from death, tired and more than half mad, I closed my eyes, and I forgot where I was. For a while there was nothing, just dark madness full of chaotic ideas and feelings, and pain, mostly pain. I was hurting all over. I was suffocating. I tried to catch my breath and I woke up. I was bloody and bruised all over, bleeding from scratches and small cuts caused by the broken glass I hadn't even noticed during the fight. My nose was broken and full of drying blood. I was somewhere in the middle of a desert, without my guns or the backpack I'd forgotten, and the normal meaning of the word, and its stupid little saloon. All that just because I wasn't able to resist the need to forget about my stupid, miserable life for a moment the way normal people do. In a drink. People like me, forgetting is always risky for us. There's always a possibility that losing your memory might cost you a lot more than you thought, and that you'll survive it.